We preview the Baltimore Ravens Week 2 preseason matchup with the Arizona Cardinals with a very special guest next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we are back. Another episode of Locked On Ravens here on Purple Friday. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreich of Ravens Wire. We're here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day and joining us here today. We're free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Elias. Their app lets you access team and player stats, head-to-head team comparisons. Give yourself the edge of this NFL season. Find Elias Game Plan in the App Store or Play Store today. And we're back here again, Purple Friday, as I mentioned, and we have a good episode. We're going to dive into the Ravens and Titans matchup they had last Thursday, dive into this game against the Arizona Cardinals. And here to do it with me today, former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion, Qadry Ismail. Q. Ravens pick up their 21st straight preseason win on Thursday night. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. And yeah, you're right. The Ravens got the first one under their belt. The streak lives, and we still have some little bit of preseason left before the real deal comes about.
Yeah, and it's exciting for the young players here because, again, with the Ravens, not really sure how much we're going to see of these starters. Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh said, is not going to play in the second preseason game, but we got a glimpse of those young guys on Thursday night, and I was impressed with so many of them. There weren't really a ton of negative takeaways from that game because, again, Baltimore felt like just, I don't want to say dominated, but they did a pretty good job on both sides of the football. And I want to start on offense with you, Q. I mean, guys like Shamar Bridges, Isaiah Likely, two players who, again, are looking for playing time. In Shamar Bridges' case, a roster spot. Who are you impressed with, those two and other guys, too?
Yeah, I thought Shamar Bridges, the opportunity that came his way, took the most of it. I thought the receiving core in general, they caught the ball extremely well. Tylan Wallace, he had the quick pass and, or I guess reverse, however you want to call it, but it was just okay. I thought, the defensive tackle or the outside linebacker, he set the edge, but he got pushed upfield and, he kind of ran into him. So the opportunities that he had, I'd probably give him maybe a C, like, okay, cool. I wish we'd have seen more. Obviously, you look at Shamar, he used his size really good when it came to the red zone opportunities. And now I will say, yes, and I've said this before, more than likely you're not going to be going up against that guy come the regular season. So, you preface it and you don't, put him in the Pro Bowl just yet. But the fact that he was producing, the fact that he was aware and the bright lights weren't too big for him, you know what? There's another opportunity that's going to come your way coming up this Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. Isaiah Likely is the real deal. His explosiveness, his burst up the field, I thought it was hilarious because when he had the one particular catch that was on the Ravens sideline in the red zone, he picked up the first down. But like in my mind, I was like, bro, you can't be juking, too many guys. You got to get up the field now. If you're Lamar Jackson and you had that 4.3, 4.2 speed, sure, go ahead. But yeah, he came out and said it. I know John Harbaugh came out and said it. Get up the field, get what you can get. But I like his presence. I like how he attacked the ball. I like how he, put pressure on the defense to cover him. And I just think it goes to what I've been saying all along, that they prioritize, basically the tight end group. They're the go-to position. And as much as you want to talk about, the different, receivers that are out there and the free agents and all that, that's not what this offense is built upon. It's predicated on a run, and it's predicated on getting the tight ends the ball, and then everyone else eats after that.
Yeah.
Defensively, Kyle Hamilton. Okay. Had some really, really good plays. Loved how, it was weird when I was kind of just watching the D-line and I'm kind of observing and seeing. I see this guy just real long and rangy, covered some ground. And I looked up, I was like, whoa, who is that? Oh, it's Kyle Hamilton. Okay. Him being around the ball was really cool. Obviously recovering the fumble, I thought was really pivotal. It's not as easy as you would think. And when that ball does come your way, sometimes the ball bounces other places. But one guy I specifically remember, Lardarius Webb, made this comment about the greatest safety to ever play, and that's in Ed Reed. He goes, Ed just somehow the ball finds him. I literally had put myself in position to make so many interceptions, so many plays, and it wouldn't come about. And I am so frustrated. Yet Ed comes in here 8 weeks, he's down, and right away he gets a pick and or a forced fumble. And I think just what we saw in a small sample size of Kyle Hamilton, I think that there's potential for Kyle Hamilton to kind of be, hey, what are we seeing? Are you a guy that's going to be around the ball and making plays?
And I think for Hamilton, he did have those few. Well, the one obviously on the Malik Willis touchdown where he kind of whiffed when he was up 1-on-1 with him. So some learning experiences there too. But that one play where he came down, he was deep high in the middle of the field, and a guy caught Kyle Hamilton just burst. I mean, the range that we saw from him, he has it. And also, you talk about guys like Marcus Williams and guys like Chuck Clark and that safety was we have all offseason, Q. I mean, it's a room that really has so much potential. And also a guy that I really was impressed with. There are obviously more, but Travis Jones, someone who, still, I have no idea how he fell to the third round. I'm not complaining if I'm the Ravens. I'm saying thank you, rest of the NFL. What'd you see from him on Thursday night?
I just saw a guy that the bright lights did not disturb him one lick. And he's bigger than I thought. Like I was like, yo, homeboy is like a big dude. I just didn't think, up against other guys, he would, you just kind of like, all right, he's a big guy, okay. But just man, that dude is a big boy. But he can move. Like he is fast. He runs, he got great range. When you talk about sideline to sideline, that's what he's going to be required to do. It was cool to see him get his sack. Don't put too much stock in it, but I guess if you're in the preseason and this is your first experience, then you would put some stock into it. So it's good to see. Again, you got to do it. You got to get used to it. You want to, if you're callousing up to prepare yourself to play, well, then you better go ahead and start callousing yourself up to make big plays. And in the mindset, I was like, yo, this dude, he's ready, and I think it's a matter of just time, I think, and the fact that there's so many guys that are out there that are experienced, the likes of Calais Campbell, the likes of what we've seen with Michael Pierce. There are going to be nuances that he can learn from them that I think, Brent Urban, you talk about a big man. He's a big man, and I think that the strength that TJ showed in my mind, if he can, okay, I see how he changed his technique up on there. Oh, okay, I see how he had a burst of speed, or he went from speed to power, where you're just bull rushing a guy, or the guy thinks he's about to get bull rushed, and then you just whoop, go right by him. Those little nuances, when to put it on, when to chill. Man, I was impressed.
He's a player that I think will carve out a very big role on this defense. When we're talking late in the year, Q, because they have a lot of players there where maybe early on in the year, they might favor some veterans because they have done that before. But by the end of the year, I think we're going to be talking about Travis Jones, a guy who has a massive role on this team. And I was really impressed, not just in his pass rushing development that we saw on Thursday night, but also his ability to stop the run, to hold the center and shed him when the time was right and make the tackle. So he's not just an interior pass rusher. He does a lot of different things very well. But I know Marquise Brown's back in Ravens news, made some headlines a couple of days ago with something he said. And I think it's interesting because he was very complimentary of the organization. He said, obviously, loved his time in Baltimore, this, that, and the other. But he did say, and I'll read it here, he said, quote, "I want to feel like I'm a part of something to win. At the Ravens, I just felt like sometimes they really didn't need me. Regardless if I was there or not, they were going to win games. I love the game too much. I want to be involved." And so, Q, what are your overall takeaways from that? I know obviously Marquise Brown not a Raven anymore, but still very interesting comments here again, while being very complimentary of the organization earlier on in what he said.
There was a comment by a fan on Twitter I thought was really cool because he was mentioning, Marquise Brown's targets. And he did get targeted quite a bit. It wasn't like he was sitting there some, slouch and not, being involved. Heck, we go back to his breakout game, which was right away against the Miami Dolphins opening day. And you just saw him slinging the ball down the field and all the things. For Marquise, I think it's how he gets involved in the offense early on and often, or there's a sense that this is where we're going to be. Which is where we're going to be means it's going to be like a Jamar Chase. It's going to be like Jefferson over in Minnesota. It's going to be, a scenario like they have it up in Buffalo with Josh and Diggs. I just honestly think for what this offense is, there is plenty of room to feast, but there's times where you got to be so patient and still be ready. That's the rub. That's the trick, and that's the thing I think that really frustrated him. And then, you talk about leverage, you talk about money from that leverage. When you are the guy and you're able to make plays, we saw what the contracts were looking like, and I think Eric DeCosta talked about, I'm willing to pay him, an extension, but I'm not gonna, his mindset was like, I'm not breaking the bank, and everybody else is breaking the bank. So sure, there's a little smoke and mirror here as far as being professional and all that, but I think at the end of the day, he really wanted his money too. And you can't fault him for that. He had to make a strong business decision, and ultimately we'll see if it works out for him. Obviously, Tyler Linderbaum we're going to see if it works out for the Ravens as well.
Yep. And so Marquise Brown targeted 146 times last year. That's how many targets he got. Averages out to about 9 targets a game, a little over 9 targets a game based off the games that he played in 2021. So you're right, Q. He wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. He was getting targeted. He was involved in the offense. But again, it seems like some of the problem for him was how he was utilized, as you talked about. And you made another good point. I mean, for Marquise Brown, were the Ravens going to pay him $20 million per season, $25 million per season in an offense that doesn't utilize receivers maybe as much as an Arizona or a Kansas City or some of those other high-flying passing offenses? And that's a question that, some people might have different answers to. Some people might say yes. Other people might say no. I'm a little skeptical that they would have, but again, we're never going to know the answer to that question. So for Marquise Brown, again, it seems like he did enjoy his time in Baltimore. Obviously, he had fun playing with Lamar Jackson and obviously thinks a lot of Lamar Jackson, both on and off the field. But now he's in Arizona, Baltimore, traveling to Arizona to play the Cardinals here on Sunday in the preseason. We'll talk about that and what's in store for the offensive side of the ball coming up in our second segment. So be sure to stay tuned. We still have a ton to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. First, though, I do want to tell you a bit about Dave. And in life, hindsight can be 20/20, and you can't change the past. What if you get a little help from your future self? Maybe you'd ask to borrow a little cash, but now you can actually do that with Dave. Dave is the banking app that can help you out to $500 instantly with extra cash. That's more money to fill your tank, buy a wedding gift, or even catch up on bills. You can finally tackle those expensive. They've been trusting you out without any hangups. There's no interest, no credit check needed as well. Those people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch, need some extra help, download the Dave app and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's DAVE. Sign up for an extra cash. You got to get the $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. It's registered to buy. They give provided by eVault member FDIC. The future you will thank you. We're back here with our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher is still here with Qadry Ismail in Q. Baltimore going for their 22nd straight preseason win. You gotta go back to 2015 for that last preseason loss, which is so impressive in its own right. But we do now know Lamar Jackson's not going to be playing in this game. Not necessarily a total shock to me. So that leaves Tyler Huntley and it leaves Anthony Brown, who, in my opinion, Q, impressed. Anthony Brown impressed me. Both guys honestly did. Brett Hundley no longer on the team. But how would you kind of distribute these snaps out? Do you want to see a half from Hundley, a half from Brown, or do you feel like maybe Huntley gets a quarter, Brown gets 3/4? Where are you with the quarterback snap distribution?
So this is interesting because it is a second preseason game, and obviously, from a evaluation standpoint, I kind of already know what I got in Tyler, and I love it. I think if you look at the totality of this offense, they're still going to keep things vanilla. They're not going to have really too many major players out there on the field, if any. And I honestly believe if the game is about competing and winning, give your backup as much feel and flow as you can, and if that means giving him the 2-minute offense, going either into the half or coming out of the half, so be it. But I like the fact that Tyler has so much experience already. Snoop is certified, if you will, because of what we saw last year in Chicago and how he handled himself, and then moving forward. Um, he put the team in position to win games. They didn't close it out, but the fact that he put himself in position really speaks volumes to his preparation and just him overall being ready. But I think quarterback wise, yeah, let him get excuse me, the majority of the snaps and see how it looks as far as even a 2-minute offense.
Yeah, I think the Ravens probably you get Tyler Huntley in there for a quarter, and then you let Anthony Brown kind of finish things off because you do want to see if he's a player. I still don't think Baltimore's keeping 3 quarterbacks on their roster. I just think there are too many other positions that they need other bodies at in place of a quarterback. But if you see a lot from Anthony Brown, and you think that you can maybe get him on the practice squad, you can sneak him on there as your third quarterback, much like they had done before with obviously Trace McSorley, who the Ravens will see throwing it on some dimes in Arizona on Sunday. We'll see what the Ravens have in Anthony Brown. Again, it can't just be one preseason game, then nothing for the final 2. You have to continue the momentum that you have there. And
Yeah.
Q, speaking of continuing momentum, Justice Hill did a lot for me in terms of his performance on Thursday. We saw him have bursts. We saw him in pass protection play well, which is very important in an offense. But snap distributions there, do you feel like we might see a little bit less of Mike Davis, maybe a veteran whose roster position pretty much seems like he'll make this team? So do you feel like Davis will probably get a little less run? We'll see more Justice Hill, Tyler Beatty, Nate McCrary, those guys?
Beatty and McCrary, I think we'll see them in their rotation. Excuse me. I honestly look at what Justice Hill did, and if I'm Eric DaCosta, you know, it's not that I'm looking to trade for another running back. I think the fact that JK is on schedule and maybe even slightly ahead of schedule, and we know at some point Gus is going to come back, but I really, really, really want to get a strong eval and a body of work with Justice Hill. Not just we the fan base already knows what he does. We've seen these bright flashes before. We've seen him execute before. It's staying healthy. That's the main thing. So I think for John Harbaugh and his staff, they're trying to make sure things are well within the scheme of things. But I think also from a health standpoint and bigger picture, do we bring in another guy or do we just stay pat? And I think this is a chance to close that door and just say, look, we got who we got and we feel comfortable with who we got. That's where I think Justice Hill can really make a big splash.
Yeah, and I think for Baltimore, their running backs right now, it is seeming like, well, obviously not confirmed, but it's seeming like Gus Edwards is not going to be able to make week 1. It seems like he's going to maybe have to spend some time on the PUP list or on IR or wherever it is just to work his way back. And maybe he's ready for week 1 and surprises. That would be the best case scenario. But in the event that he's not, in the event that J.K. Dobbins is ready, I still think Baltimore keeps 4 running backs. And I think that those 4 ideally would, at this point, assuming nothing else happens, assuming no Devonta Freeman's brought in, obviously, you have J.K. Dobbins, you have Tyler Beatty, you have Mike Davis, and you have Justice Hill. I think those 4, and then once Gus Edwards come back, you can figure it out. You can swing something for Devonta Freeman, whatever. But I still think that the Ravens have enough there. And even if you want to put McCurry on the practice squad, right, you have it. But I think that, again, Baltimore has, like, compared to last year, I'm so much more confident in their depth this year based off of guys who have been in the system for a whole off season, right? This isn't like you're bringing in Murray, Freeman, Bell right before the season starts. You got to work on mesh point and everything. But for me, that's where I am at the running back position. But let me get a hot take out of you right here. Do you feel like Shamar Bridges can lock up a roster spot with another great performance on Sunday?
Absolutely. I think what I'm going to be looking for is his special teams play. If he is on the field as a gunner, what does that look like? And then also, if he can, cover kicks and cover them well, um, that is where you make this ball club. You're going to solidify yourself as a valuable asset as a receiver, no question about it. But to make the ball club, you need to be on special teams if you're Shamar. And I think the fact that guys, soft tissue injuries, come on. You worked all off season. You knew what's at stake. I'm not saying, like they got hurt on purpose or anything like that. But I do know that ultimately when it comes to those soft tissue injuries, it's the way in which you move, it's the way in which you lift. We've spoken about it on this show so many times. And I think, unfortunately, you can't make the club in the tub. You can't be in an evaluation process if you're Prochet or Tylon or whomever else that is on that list and expect to be okay. So uh, he's in a strong position. Now I'm curious to see, what does he do to have an encore performance?
Yep, and so I wouldn't expect a guy like obviously both James Prochet and Tyler Loss to play in this one with the fact that they haven't been practicing. But would you expect Rashad Bateman and Evan Duvernay Q to get some snaps in this game? Would you give them snaps if you were the Ravens? Like maybe a series or two.
Give who a snap?
Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay.
No. Devin Duvernay, possibly. Rashad Bateman, if Lamar's not playing, why? I don't think so. Now, with all that said, Snoop, I think, he developed great chemistry with Bateman, and that's great. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think we've seen enough in the different camps, some strong practices out of Rashad Bateman to kind of like, all right, cool. You know what? All right, we've seen what we've seen. Now that third preseason game, let's go. This is a tune-up. Let's do this. This is a little bit different because you took away a preseason game, you added a regular season game, so the sense of urgency to evaluate guys and get them ready is slightly different than what we've seen traditionally in the past.
Yep, from 4-3, there is a definite shift in maybe what you do classify as the tune-up game. And most instances with the 4, it was the third preseason game. Well, with the 3, is it still the third preseason game? Is it the second? It differs for some teams. So it's interesting, but Q, also along the lines of that, do you expect Isaiah Likely to play a lot in this game? We obviously know that it feels like he's going to have a huge role in this offense. I mean, if you're the Ravens, are you putting him out there and risking injury based off of what you've seen? Do you want to maybe see more development as a blocker, maybe for a quarter here and then nothing in the third preseason game? Where are you with in terms of if Isaiah Likely should play or not in these final 2 games?
Okay, he's a rookie. He had a good showing. That's all well and good. Give him a little bit of his flowers, but no, like I'm gonna use this word, and I'm not saying any players or anything like that, but the game can't be that soft. You can't necessarily just think it's injury every single time. You got to go out there. You got to prepare yourself, and I think it's okay that he goes out there and he prepares himself. Him and Kyle Hamilton, you know, don't save guys. Yeah, sure. We want to protect them from injury, but we got to see what you got, and you got to gain some experience. So come regular season, there's no big surprises.
Yep. Yeah, I think that even if the Ravens do want to take more of the cautious approach, I don't think they want to, play scared here for lack of a better term. And they shouldn't. I don't think that's the approach they want to take. It's more of the cautious approach with, hey, you know what? We're not going to play all these different guys. But with rookies, it is a bit different because you want to see them against live action, against other opponents. So in the Ravens not having joint practices this year, it's a little different because they have done that these past couple of seasons. They're not doing that this year. So it's another opportunity to see them. So I'm not saying play Isaiah Likely the whole game. Absolutely. Like that's not what I'm saying. But maybe, hey, a quarter in the second preseason game, maybe like a quarter in the third preseason game. Then you get to see, and then maybe you can hand it over to Josh Oliver, Ben Mason, and those guys too. But Q, offensive line wise, what are you looking for out of that group?
Oh my God, left guard. Can we settle it? I mean, is it Ben Powers? Okay, the two Bens that I thought was going to be fighting for it would be Ben Cleveland and Ben Powers, and Tyree Phillips now is like in the equation, but Left guard. Okay. Do we need to further discuss? Like, golly, I thought, Kevin, we would be seeing, like this all solidified and done, but left guard, like, come on, I am like, what in the world is going on here? Um, I don't know schematically if Ben can't comprehend things. I don't know if it's, doghouse because you didn't come in shape. But gosh, I thought Ben Cleveland was going to be, talked about as the guy, the third round draft choice, all that. There's still hope for him, but left guard. Did I say left guard? I think I said left guard. Left guard.
Left guard for me is the one. And also, you look at the backup left tackle position, assuming Ronnie Stanley's healthy. Jawan James, someone who they've been looking to kind of figure out if he can play that left tackle position. There's a lot to figure out there in terms of what they can do, because James is primarily a right tackle, played that position for the majority of his career. Now he's moving over to the left side, playing some left tackle. And I think, that's the backup left tackle position is one that I'm interested to see for sure. But we'll head into our final break here. When we get back, we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball for the Ravens Week 2 matchup with the Arizona Cardinals in the preseason. So be sure to stay tuned. Still a ton to talk about here on the show. First, though, I do want to tell you a bit about BetterHelp. And life can throw you a lot of curveballs all the time, and it's really important to have someone to help talk you through those curveballs. I've had people to help me talk through things, and for BetterHelp, it's not a crisis line. It's not even self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. You can schedule a weekly video or even phone sessions, so you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. And getting therapy every week is easy as a few clicks on your laptop or your phone. It's more affordable than traditional offline therapy, and financial aid is also available. Visit the website and read the testimonials that are posted daily. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. And they have a special offer for listeners here today. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/lockedon. We're back here, our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oshlecker still here with Qadry Ismail and Q. We talked about some of those defensive standouts from the first game. I mean, on the defensive line and really in that front seven, let's just talk about defensive line, outside linebacker, inside linebacker. I want to see a group that, again, flying to the football, being able to make impact plays. I mean, who do you have your eye on in that front seven in this game?
So again, I still want to see, the progression of everybody on that front line. I know Calais Campbell, he is so excited for these guys. I definitely want to see him in street clothes. I better not see him, maybe just in pregame warm-up, go out there, get a strong workout in, and then call it a day. But I think this defensive front, linebacker-wise, from Harrison and company, like, bro, we need to see it. We need to see it. Some strong continuity, and we need to see better tackling. So from the first game to the second game is where you make your biggest improvement. The biggest improvement I want to see from this linebacking core is just that tackling a lot better than what we saw last Thursday night against the Titans.
Yeah, Malik Harrison, I'd say, had an up-and-down game. I think that, again, he was flying around to the football, had the forced fumble, of course, which we talked about. Kyle Hamilton recovered it, but did miss some tackles, got stiff-armed on a play, too, which was not his finest moment. So, yeah, it's just being able to correct those mistakes and just making sure they don't happen again. I also want to see if Steven Means can continue his performance based off what we saw. I mean, with the outside linebacker group the way it is, Q, with the uncertain health, I'd say, of Tyus Bowser and David Ajabo, and obviously Vince Beagle tearing his Achilles, they have to have guys step up if they're not going to bring anybody else in. So Jeremiah Moon, Chuck Wiley, who was reported to get cut, but then wasn't actually cut because Trent Harris, who they signed, went on IR. So that was kind of a merry-go-round type deal there. But yeah, those were all very important. Then on the defensive line, I think Travis Jones, again, I have my eyes squarely on him in that room because he feels like a guy, but also Broderick Washington. Maybe just Matabika get some run in there too. Those are the young guys who I think will have big roles. It's just a matter of if they can perform in the preseason, can they get a little extra, 5 snaps here, 5 snaps there moving forward. But can you move into the secondary? Again, I'm very fixated on Kyle Hamilton. I also think Pepe Williams is someone who I'm excited to see how he is utilized as well. Cornerback wise, is Brandon Stevens going to get some run? Or Darius Washington, someone who just came off the PUP list, I think he'll get some run as well, assuming he's able to play in this one. I mean, who are you looking at in the secondary?
Pepe, I think, is a guy that really is I'm circling him. There's a couple of other guys when it comes to the. So we know that, Hollywood said what he said. We know that Kyler Murray will not be playing. I want to see basically this group go out and put it on lockdown across the board. Be a lot better. There was some busts, if you will, as far as communication. I know Tony Jefferson on the one. It was a deep corner route, and for veteran, I don't know if he felt like the corner should have kept his leverage with the defense or with the receiver, and he kind of passed it off, and Tony kind of shot him a look, and they were having words. Not that it wasn't bad or anything. It's just I think the communication of it all, in my mind, needs to be better. And then I also think from the communication standpoint, tackling again needs to be more on point.
Yeah, they have some stuff to work on now. Ideally, you get that done in August and not in January or February. This is where you get those things out. But yeah, I think the play you were talking about, Kevon Seymour, kind of passed him off, and everybody's like, "Well, what's going on here?" And there was obviously some sort of miscommunication, whatever it was. And Kevon Seymour is someone who, again, by accounts of his, has been having a pretty good training camp. But you see him at the live practice, you see him in the first game with that miscommunication. It's those types of plays. I mean, I don't have Seymour in my final roster. I think he's a practice squad guy. I think he's liked in that locker room. And if he's having a good camp, he's having a good camp. You can't take that away from him, definitely. But I think also, Q, in that secondary, Geno Stone is someone who I have my eye on because he had such a good performance. And to me, it's interesting because I had him in a battle with Darius Washington for maybe that final safety or secondary spot. But after the game on Thursday, Q, I'll ask you the same question that I asked you with Shamar Bridges. Do you think that Geno Stone at this point already is 100% of a lock, or do you think he can lock up a spot with a good performance against Arizona?
He was making plays. I mean, I saw him around the football quite often. I would say he's a lock. I'm going to go out on a limb, say he's a lock. You can't have enough as far as quality depth at the secondary position. We've seen it in the past when guys have really struggled, and John Harbaugh is trying to piecemeal, team together as far as, secondary is concerned. Yeah. Flashing back 2013, 2014 after the Super Bowl year, like, oh my God, the horror of my eyes. So I think, if you look at what's going on with this evaluation process of the secondary, this is a good pass happy offense that requires you to have better communication. I see Geno Stone as a guy that if he can get through this and show, mentally he's locked in, ready to go, no question about it. I think this is a stepping stone for him to make the squad.
And if he's not already at 100% lock at this point, he is very, very close to being one. And part of the reason is because, look, you mentioned it, guys who are injured right now, it's no fault of their own, but you can't make the squad if you're not playing, if you're not on the field.
And make the club in the tub.
Yep, there's a saying. So for Darius Washington, a player that I loved coming out of TCU, I thought he was a third round safety. I think he still has a shot to make the team, most definitely. But he has some ground to make up because he wasn't on the field contributing when other guys were. So I'm hopeful the Ravens find a way to keep both of them. I hope they can keep both Geno Stone and Darius Washington. We'll see. Hugh, let's wrap it up with a prediction here, though. Do you feel like Baltimore will get their 22nd straight preseason win here on Sunday?
I don't see why not. Your team top to bottom is a really good squad. John Harbaugh should feel really good about it. And you got Justin Tucker, the greatest kicker in NFL history. The most accurate anyway. I'm sure Adam Vinatieri is like, wait a minute, does he have what I got? And kind of flash some rings. But yeah, I think, this ball club top to bottom is a good enough ball club. And in the fourth quarter, sure, if you want to, make the team, or if you want to be in a position to be on the practice squad, make an interception, get a pick six, force a fumble, do something, make a play in the red zone, or, whatever it might be. But it's so uncanny because time and time again, you just see the Ravens step up and make the necessary play, or you see, Justin Tucker doing what Justin Tucker does, and not many people can have that luxury of having a kicker of his caliber.
Yep, and again, stuff that I've kind of echoed throughout the week here is if the Ravens didn't have good depth, they wouldn't be winning these games. The Ravens can win these games in the preseason without their starters. They don't have to have Lamar Jackson. They can get it done with the guys they have. They build up that depth, and it's very good year in and year out. So I'm excited to see what they're able to do on Sunday against Arizona. But Q, I appreciate you hopping on. Thank you so much for joining me here. And hopefully next week we'll be talking about that 22nd straight preseason win and seeing if they can go for 23.
Yeah, I think this is really cool, that little subplot. But then at the same time, yeah, your first game to your second game, that's when you make your biggest jump as far as improvement. And there's a lot of evaluations still left to go. So this is going to be a fun night to watch them play.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Again, a lot of young guys, opportunities to earn snaps, earn a roster spot, and we'll see if they're able to capitalize on that most definitely. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll take a 2-day break. When we get back, we'll be breaking down everything that happened in that Week 2 game between the Ravens and the Cardinals. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you right back here on Monday.